What's up, peoples? How you doing? It is a great day, and I am so excited to have you guys here. Man, let me tell you something. I have an amazing author on the show, and I'm not even going to do it because I know you guys are tired of hearing me say it. But you know, without authors, we're what idiots? Yes. And today we have Dick Shriver on the show. He has his book, and let me tell you something. It is like glimpses of an uncharted life. The empire collapsed, but the evil remained. We're going to get into that a bit later, but we're going to go ahead and get into Mr. Shriver right now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank,
Nice to see you. Nice to be with you.
thank you for being here. So tell us about yourself. How did you ever know you were going to be writing a book, or did this just happen?
No. I wrote the book probably when I was 75 years old. So the book was about some of the adventures we had during the previous 50 years.
What? When you were 75? How old are you?
Today, this is my 90th year.
Oh my gosh, you look amazing.
I'm not as good as I look.
Well, you look amazing, and that's all that matters right now. That you look great on camera. You're 90?
Well, not till August,
Not
actually.
until August.
89 and a half.
Wow, 89 and a half is a big deal. It's a big deal. It is really a big deal. And nowadays, people are living as centurions. What do you see yourself doing in the next 10 years? I mean, if you live to be 100 years old, which is pretty typical now.
Well, when I was 85, I didn't have to do this, but I started a magazine called Estuary, all about life of the Connecticut River, the people, the history, the ecology, the science, the recreational opportunities, and the future of the river. So
Nice.
I expect we'll break even just before I reach 90.
Oh my gosh, that's so good though.
So far,
Oh,
so
wow.
good, right?
That is really good. So let's go back into time. Let's go back into history. What made you like become that writer? I mean, and you said you did this at 75, but what about 70?
Well, at 70, I was still working. I was provost of a small English language college in Berlin, Germany, startup college, actually. It's now part of Bard. It's called Bard College Berlin today, but it was called the European College of Liberal Arts. So that's what I was doing at 70.
My goodness, I'm being intrigued here. So tell me about let's go back to your 20s. Hold on a second. I got to go back here because your life seems super interesting. So 20s to 70, did you ever think you were going to write a book?
I did not, no, probably not.
Mm, mm. So, I mean, okay, so tell us about the book, Glimpses of an Uncharted Life. I mean, why the title?
Uh, well, a lot of people plan their careers and their lives, and I don't think I did that. I kind of bounced from one thing to another as opportunities arose and calamity struck, that sort of thing. And so as I look back on it, other people were much better at charting a career than I was. So I called it an uncharted life because we moved 24 times in 50 years.
Wow.
And much of it was overseas. When we went overseas, we lived in the Soviet Union for a year in Kiev, Ukraine. And then we devoted the next 12 years of our lives to that part of the world, Eastern Europe and the republics of the former Soviet Union, mostly Ukraine, but also Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Georgia, Kazakhstan, Russia itself, Moldova. We were and then all of Eastern Europe, Poland and Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Slovakia, and then Czechia. So anyway, that was an unusual kind of toward the end of the career, because I was in 1990, I was 57 years old when we started this venture in the Soviet Union. Most things happened by accident. An opportunity arose, and we took advantage.
My gosh, is that in the book?
That's what the book's about. It's about
Ooh,
it's about the people. It's not about me. I hope not. It's more about the people we met and the situations we encountered that were unique for an American.
mm,
Uh, and uh, and then parts of the life that led up to that. But mostly it was about the people we met in the Soviet Union and then in the former Soviet Union in the 12 years after 1990.
wow, wow. And the country has changed so much, the terrain, the country, the wars and everything that's going on over there in Kiev and in the former Soviet Union. And it's just sad right now. But your experience, what was that like for you?
Well, for my wife and myself, my wife Barb, it was unique. So prior to that, I had spent a year and a half in the earlier than that, actually. I spent two tours in the U.S. government, one in the Defense Department and one in the Treasury Department, both at the Assistant Secretary level. So I spent a year and a half in the Defense Department in 1976 and 77. And every day I had a briefing on what the Soviet Union could do to our country. Every day. And uh, and then after that, 10 or 12 years later, the Soviet Union collapsed, and I was offered an opportunity to teach in the first Western style business school in the Soviet Union in Kiev, Ukraine. And I said, this was in September of 1989 that I was invited to go there. And I said, 3 weeks. I thought 3 weeks would be enough to see the Soviet Union or get a taste of it. And then, of course, in November, the Berlin Wall came down and the phone rang and the school in Kiev said, can you stay a little longer? As it turned out, we stayed during the whole school year of 1990, this first year of a startup business school, MBA granting business school with 31 communists aged from 22 to 49, mostly men, but 7 or 8 women.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, I know that there's things that you can't say, but you said the evil remains.
Well, I'm referring to Putin, of course.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Ukrainians, uh, Ukrainians have been under the Russian thumb for 300 years.
Yeah.
Prior to communism, it was just the nature of the Russian government, the mentality to treat the Ukrainians as uh, as peasants, as people who were beneath the Russian. The language was simple. It was different than Russian language. The people were mainly in agriculture. And Russians had been invited in by the Ukrainians in 1654 to help protect them against Poles and and Turks and so on. Then that treaty ended, but Russian troops never left Ukraine. That was the beginning of Russian oppression of Ukrainians. We became quite fond of both Russians and Ukrainians, but the Russian form of government is very, very unique and foreign to our experience and not compatible with the democracy of the United States and Western Europe today.
My
And
God.
that's what I mean by the evil remained.
Yeah.
The empire collapsed and all 15 republics emerged from this one somewhat uh, this one contiguous entity called the Soviet Union, but it wasn't held together by common interests. It was held together by all kinds of deals and corruption and intrigue.
Mm, mm, mm. My gosh.
So the evil remained, Yaya. That's all I can say.
I hear you. I
And
hear you.
we,
And
and
it
we,
did.
it did, and it's real evil. And when I talk about evil, when you think about what life was like in Ukraine, every Ukrainian we met had a story of history, life under Stalin. And Joseph Stalin, in the year I was born, 1933, he decided that the farmers in Ukraine and southern Russia were not embracing his collective farming policy eagerly enough, and so he took all the food away that was grown in the year of 1932, I think it was, and then none of it came back in 33, and 6 or 7 or 8 million people died, mostly in Ukraine, starved to death. Terrible stories, cannibalism, everything you can imagine. True evil.
Mm. Oh, that's terrible.
And then during World War II and after World War II, if you were a Ukrainian, basically, and you were doing well and having a decent life, well, that was unbearable to the Soviet mentality. And so in the town that we lived in Western Ukraine for 5, 6, 7 years, 1995 to 2002, in Lviv in Western Ukraine, 100 people a day, men, almost exclusive, I guess exclusively men, were hauled out into the street along the trolley line, and I'm sorry, they were shot to death in the police station. Then 100 bodies every morning were hauled out into the trolley tracks for the families to claim their uncle, their brother, their husband, for 2 years. These purges under Stalin are just unimaginable in the history of our history, the history that we're taught, the history that we grow up with in this country.
Oh, that's terrible. That's horrible. That's just, I no, that's horrible.
So here's the point, Yaya. Ukrainians today are fighting pretty hard against the Russians, right?
Yeah.
They know that life under Russia is worse than dying.
Mm.
So they're willing to die for their country. They're willing to die for themselves, for their family, for the future of their children.
My gosh. My gosh. This is horrible. This is horrible. And you know, most people don't know that.
No, and I don't know how important it is for most people to know it, but I think it's important.
I think so too.
And my wife thinks it's important.
I think so.
So,
yes. Wow. So glimpses of an uncharted life, the empire collapsed, but the evil remained. Are a lot of these stories in that book?
Yes, I'd say that's 70% of the 80% of the book is stories about from when we lived inside the Soviet Union or working with Ukrainians or people from Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Georgia, whatever.
Mm.
Things that happen.
Wow. Well, I thank you so much for writing this book. Again, you know, we would be idiots or unknown or just, you know, I call it idiots because it's like, you know, how they say, this is the book for idiots kind of thing. If you don't know something, and then once you know, you're not an idiot anymore, you know, obviously it's unknown. And I call myself an idiot a lot because there's a lot of things I don't know. But because of authors like yourself, we get the chance to actually understand and comprehend and learn.
I know.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Oppression for idiots. That would be the book.
Yeah.
Governmental oppression for idiots. It's very relevant to all of us today.
Yes, it is. And once you read it, and once you understand it, you are no longer an idiot, but then you become sad. Knowledge can be sadness.
That's true.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you want to remain an idiot, then don't read this book. But if you want to know more about what's really going on and his life over there in the Ukraine, in Russia, you need to read this book. I think you need to read it because we all need to know what's going on so that we don't repeat history and that history doesn't continue to push out people who are evil, like what we're going through today. Mr. Shriver, I want to thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Yaya.
Thank you. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to go ahead and check out the link. It's in the description box below, as well as don't forget to dare to be different. Get just don't be an idiot anymore. Okay. Don't be an idiot anymore. And let's see what happens with this whole thing. This is just terrible. I can't. All right, guys. Until next time.